Good afternoon, everybody. CIOs and Bowties, Greg Silberman, David Crook. This is part 3 of our 4th of October diatribe. They'll be posted at different times, I might add, but we hope you enjoyed parts 1 and part 2. Part 3, something that I'm extremely interested in, something that I believe in the future of, much more so than most people do. I'm either going to be proven to be right or wrong. There is no middle ground here. And that discussion has to do with digital assets and what I perceive to be the future growth of the digital asset area, investable and practical, and both of those. And with that, we're going to talk about what I always refer to as the demise of fiat currencies. And Greg, I'm going to lead that to you. If you would let us know what we mean when we talk about fiat currencies.
Yeah, probably good to have a definition, right? Because I think people get confused. So the word fiat is not a car, it's not a motor car, although it is a motor car. Fiat actually is fiat. And I believe, I don't have the definition in front of me, but it basically means, I think, through tort, or in other words, through law, through legal means, the creation of something. So when they refer to fiat currency, really what it means is by the force of law of the United States, EU, whatever. So the term fiat refers to by tort or by legal means. So that the implication being that our currency today, the dollar bill or $100 bill, is created through fiat, through the force of law. So essentially, you've got the United States government and its legal system backing that, backing that piece of paper, essentially that's saying that this is worth, it has value of $100. That is opposed to, let's say, a gold standard, whereby you could take your $100 bill to the, I think it's the Fed window, and essentially exchange that for, real gold. That no longer exists anymore. That tether to control how much currency comes into existence, that doesn't exist. So there's your definition.
Excellent definition. So what it's become to mean these days when people refer to fiat currencies are those currencies, by the way, it's the dollar, it's the euro, it's the Japanese yen and the New Zealand dollar and the Australian dollar, and you name it, it is it. And these currencies in reality have no value. The only value is that Greg and I have agreed to transact in US dollars or in euros. That's the value that it brings. It is the legal tender of the various jurisdictions, yes, but it is backed and only backed by the goodwill of that particular government, by nothing else.
Correct.
That in and of itself, and the behavior of governments over the last 13 or so years, and even more than that, perhaps, Greg, is what leads me to believe and firmly believe that we are beginning to see the demise of fiat currencies such that they exist. And the example I used with you in just our discussions when we were talking about what we should talk about today, what we should discuss with our viewers today, was the example of if you and I between us had $10,000 in January of 2020, and you and I had $10,000 between us today, there are many, many more dollars that are in circulation today than there were in January of 2020. In fact, so much so, folks, thank you, Greg. In 2020, we printed 1/3 more dollars than were previously in existence. So the Fed and the Treasury's balance sheets expanded such that the flow of dollars into the system increased by a 30%, give or take, an enormous amount. And that leads to the logical explanation that Greg and mine $10,000 is not worth the same today than it might have been worth 18 months ago, 20 months ago, whatever that is. And that leads to issues and problems. With that, we have technology. We also have demographic changes globally that are taking place, i.e., the biggest body of people we have ever seen, and that is the millennials. And they are very comfortable with digitized transactions. It's something they've grown up with. And for an old man like me, cash is king. Well, you've got to have cash in your pocket. No, you don't. You absolutely don't have to have cash in your pocket. WeChat, yeah, indeed. So I believe that we're only at the beginnings of the expansion of the level of the reliance of society on digital assets, whether they be currencies or not. So the big one is a currency per se, Bitcoin. And what is the advantage? We use that just as an example. Why has Bitcoin seen an increase in popularity over the last decade or so? And part of the reason for that is that Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen, and Jerome Powell can't come in and print more Bitcoin. They can't go and mine more Bitcoin. At one point in time, there will only be 21 or so million Bitcoin. Today, we're at around 18.5 million. So almost all the Bitcoins that will be produced have been produced. The fact that we as investors can see a limit to how much of these there are, I would suggest you makes Bitcoin a little more attractive to one than the US dollar, where, maybe we're going to print another 20% more dollars in the next 18 months than we've had previously. The value of the dollar goes down. Inflation, by the way, is an issue we're dealing with right now, Greg, that it too doesn't help the performance of the US dollar. Right. We talk where you and I are residents.
So you've brought up some critical points. I'd like to kind of clear them up because they're always confusing people. So the monetarist definition of inflation, which I think is where you're getting at, which I believe is the real definition of inflation. Price inflation is something that happens kind of down the line. But if you print more money, right, you increase the money supply, you've inflated the amount of money, your $10,000 example, so that you got more dollars chasing the same amount of goods. By the law of supply and demand, your price level goes up. So it's really the creation of money that increases price inflation. It's not, labor. I mean, goodness, don't get me started. Why should you punish workers for working and earning too much money by, increasing interest rates and capping their wages? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So that's the definition of monetary supply, and you've applied that definition to Bitcoin, right? Saying that the supply is limited, therefore. So my second point, kind of few points there. The first point is, yes, the quantity of Bitcoin is limited, but the quantity of digital currencies out there seems to me to be totally unlimited, right? You and I can launch a digital currency if we wanted to.
Indeed.
So therein is kind of a little nuance to what you were saying. And the second thing is, if you have a monopoly on monetary creation, a la the Federal Reserve, you're not going to give that monopoly up in a hurry, right? So I can see a natural home for antagonism between, a government monetary system and a Bitcoin. It's not ruled by anyone. It's decentralized, DeFi, all that kind of stuff.
That's what it is.
And then we look at the Chinese experience now. I'm not quite sure if Bitcoin is illegal, but there are certain elements of Bitcoin which are now just totally illegal in China. So to use that word again, by fiat, the government can just say Bitcoin's illegal. They can't really they can't get rid of it, right? But
correct.
They can make it hard to transact out of Bitcoin. And I certainly think they'll do that. They'll continue doing that because the whole DeFi movement is actually undermining their ability to increase the monetary supply by 33% during times of a pandemic, as an example.
And Greg, that's one little aspect of the future of digital assets that we discussed. Is I use Bitcoin as an example. It's the most traded, and it is much more like a currency than many other things. But for example, Ethereum is a platform. You can create smart contracts on the Ethereum platform, and there are many like it as well. There are competitors to Ethereum. Yep. So the world is going more and more digital. That's not being stopped. And more and more, we will see everything digitized in terms, I don't have to go into non-fungible tokens and the NFTs.
Look at you, man. You're buying NFTs now, sports cards on NFTs?
Of artworks or whatever it might be. Yeah. But these are just some aspects of this expansion of this digital world that we see. Currency, contracts, tokens, all sorts of things. And, we are changing, and we will continue to change. The rate of change will accelerate as it always does, So sooner rather than later, we are going to be a much more digitalized society in all aspects than we are today, whether it be on the currency side or any other side for that matter. Yeah. And for those people that are looking to invest, Fidelity, by the way, who are a custodian purely in the US, who are very involved in digital assets and Bitcoin specifically, put out a white paper this week called Getting Off Zero. If you don't have any exposure to digital currencies, start small, be diversified. There are no guarantees as to which of these things. Greg made the point. He and I could start. Well, I couldn't because my technological skill set is such that I absolutely couldn't. But someone with support could create their own digital asset one way or another. And more of these things are coming to the fore every single day. So have a diversified portfolio. They're going to be winners and losers, but they're here to stay.
No, I agree. The one thing that does scare me about it is, if I'm not mistaken, the whole concept of it is the blockchain technology, right? So
that's the basis of it, indeed.
Right. And so what does worry me is that if somebody could identify, not that I'm worried particularly, but I guess at some point, if everything's digitized, your wallet, who you are, you have a digital persona, in the blockchain. And all somebody has to do is work out where that is in the blockchain and press the off switch, and they can literally kind of turn the lights out on you. Now, that's kind of, futuristic stuff. But you look at some societies which are very top heavy, let's say, very authoritarian. That's a very real thing that, you can make somebody homeless and penniless in a second if you choose to do so. Now, you could probably do that today anyway.
You could do that in a bank robbery or an armed robbery as well. But yes, indeed. Yeah, correct.
It just makes switching off a lot easier.
Yeah, back to the future. Don't be frightened of it.
No, embrace hashtag embrace change, as I always say.
Hashtag
I tell all my liberal
exactly.
No, I'm just kidding. Well, Dave, listen, this has been a great conversation. I know we've just kind of literally touched the tip of the iceberg when it comes to digital assets, but it's good to give people an idea of what's going on there and what we're seeing investors and big money do.
And once again, just like our initial discussion in ESG and the ability of that financial asset class to attract capital over the last few years, needless to say, the digital asset platforms are creating more and more, capturing more and more capital and investable assets on a daily basis. Yeah.
Great discussion. Well, listen, folks, if you want any more information, feel free to contact me or feel free to reach out to David. We'll have contact details there. And so good to hook up again. Glad. I hope you all enjoyed our 3-part series of CIOs and Bowties, and hopefully we get to do this a little bit more often. So you're looking well, and good to see you.
Thank you.
And we'll get together for that beer sooner or later.
Super. Hope to see you all very shortly, folks. Maybe it won't be as long as it was this time around. Take care, be safe, and into the future we go.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.